Okay, so now it's recording. Hi, my name is Sakina Nicholson Carter. I wanted to have a discussion about reproductive rights and why it is so important. The first thing I want to say, though, is if you have not looked at the documentary, there's a documentary on Hulu called Aftershock, and it is about uh, the medical malpractice against Black mothers. It's a wonderful, wonderful documentary. And I just hope that everybody just please go and look at it and support these brothers who have lost um, their loved ones, their girlfriends, their wives, due to medical malpractice during pregnancy. So this discussion today is important because not only have the powers that be, they have taken away a woman and a girl's right to have an abortion, but they are now planning to attack our reproductive choice, such as contraceptives. I've heard stories about in vitro fertilization being in danger. And one thing I did was I Googled reasons for reproductive rights. And the reasons that I saw that kind of came up first was unwanted pregnancy. Another reason was proper family planning. And there was actually one of the reasons, one post had the extinction of animals due to human interaction. So we needed to limit the amount of babies that women have, that families have in order to save the animals. But if all we talk about in the pro-choice movement is never truly, um, out of everything that we talk about, we never really get the support that we need in having pro-choice options for women. And I understand when I looked at that Google response, and it didn't mention anything about fibroids. It didn't mention anything about endometriosis and how contraception helps to control a woman's fibroids. Um, there's PCOS. There are many reasons why women need contraceptive care, and there are many reasons why women need the right for abortion. One thing that they don't talk about um, is two terms that I want to discuss real quick is D&C and D&E. Those are two different types of abortion. A D&C is usually done in the first trimester after a miscarriage. And I think that it's a miscarriage of justice to say, no, you don't need an abortion. But what people don't talk about is the fact that when a woman miscarries, an abortion has to be performed in order to get the baby out of her body. If the baby is not taken from the body once the baby is already dead, then, and I've worked in this field as a pediatric chaplain, the mother's body heat begins to cook and break down the baby, and that's what causes sepsis. And it puts the mother at danger for further illness and even death. So a D&C is usually done in the first trimester after a miscarriage. And a D&E is usually done during the second or third trimester after the baby has already passed away. And the reason why a D&E is needed is because you need more surgical tools because the baby is bigger. And so I wanted to kind of bring that to the conversation that an abortion isn't just, I don't want to have this baby, I'm going to go and have an abortion. Is that there? Yes. But is that the only reason why abortion is necessary? No. And we see that even now, even with ectopic pregnancies, if a woman, if the egg that is fertilized does not travel into the woman's cervix and get stuck in those fallopian tubes, that woman and that baby will die. And so I invited Reverend Robin K. Monk Self, and I invited Dr. Angela Breaker to share so that we can just have a discussion and share our stories in hopes of educating our fellow men who are curious as to why are we so angry about what's going on? Why are we so afraid? I saw on Facebook a couple of my male friends were posting, they just didn't have an understanding of why the overturning of Roe versus Wade was such it was a traumatic experience for me and for many women. And so I wanted to have this panel discussion so that we can give you guys a better understanding of why reproductive support is important. And we need y'all's help. We cannot do this alone. We as Black women, and white women, women everywhere, we all suffer from different reproductive issues that just doesn't get discussed. And so I want to talk about it. For my personal, and I'm a real person, I don't believe in sugarcoating anything. And so people who want real, they ask for cutthroat Kino. So cutthroat Kino is here. And cutthroat Kino says this, my personal experience, I had uterine fibroids. And when you have uterine fibroids, they are these cells that grow in different parts of your reproductive area. And they're non-cancerous, but they're still growths. And they push up against, different parts of your body. They cause extremely heavy bleeding. They cause a lot of pain during your period. I can't tell you the instability that I have experienced with my uterine fibroids. I had one incident where, I had to double pad up, and then I had to roll some tissue up and put it in those areas. So when the blood comes pouring down, it will be caught and not on my pants. But I had to go to work that day. And my work involved a lot of walking around, a lot of sitting, a lot of standing. I can't tell you the anxiety of knowing when you're sitting there and you feel this blood pouring out of your body and you're hoping, God, I hope when I stand up that I have not soiled this person's couch. And so one of the ways that I was able to control the effects of my uterine fibroids was through birth control pills. They controlled when I was able to control when I bleed and when I don't. Sometimes birth control pills, it stops your period altogether so that you can live a normal life, so that you can go to class, you can chase your children around the house and not worry. I used to be a pediatric chaplain. And so on the abortion side, I challenged, I saw a group on the side of the road one day, and they had these signs with these, babies in pieces and saying, oh, let's pray for the overturning of Roe versus Wade. And I thought, I'm going to challenge them. I've never done this before, but I thought I'm going to challenge them. I'm going to ask them, why are you doing this? And I ended up talking with the nurse, and she said, well, I'm a nurse. Okay. Well, so I know everything about, the human body, and I know this, that, and other. But then she didn't know that she was talking to somebody who works in healthcare. And so I asked her, well, what kind of nurse are you? And she said, well, I'm an ER nurse. Oh, so ER nurses are designed and trained to save life, no matter what. But you're not a labor and delivery nurse. Labor and delivery nurses have a different understanding of abortion and the necessity of it when it's needed. And she couldn't say anything. Oh, well, you know, I've never worked in L&D, so why are you out here? Then I asked her, you know, abortion isn't just about women who don't want to have a baby, or girls who just had a night out and don't want to have a baby, but they're also for women who have had a miscarriage. And when a woman has a miscarriage, what they do at the hospital is they try and induce her labor so that she can push out that baby. And when that doesn't work, then they have to extract the baby. And so the numbers that, you know, Fox News and all these conservative people push out, these abortion numbers, they don't break them down into columns. How many of these abortions were because of a bad experience? How many of these abortions were because a woman's baby died and she had to have an abortion? She couldn't tell me any of those. But what she did say was, oh, well, they're all still abortions. So these people who are peddling these huge numbers of abortions per year, they don't break it down to women whose babies died. They don't do that on purpose. They do that to trick you. And so I'm going to open up the floor to Reverend Monk Self to share your story, and just share whatever you want, whatever you feel like God is putting on your heart to say.
Thank you again, Sakina, for the invitation just to share my story. Got a bonus panelist here in the background, my 1-year-old daughter with my husband. I am trying to think about sharing my story kind of the most efficiently. I'll start with saying I did everything right. You opened sharing about some of the more conservative or religious right conversations or comments that are being made and plastered all over social media and just media in general about essentially condemning the woman, the mother, without knowing any details, any circumstance, without any context. There seems to be a centering of condemnation surrounding the woman in the circumstance, hiding behind the vernacular of being pro-life, hiding behind the right language of trying to save the children. But in my story, I would say I did everything right by my husband and I waiting to try to have children until after we were married, waiting to engage in the acts that would produce children before we got married, and doing everything right. We are both mature, advanced age. By the time we were able to conceive, and that was also during the double pandemic of the virus, the COVID-19 virus, and the racial reckoning, as we all were forced to be still and not distracted by the things of this world, actually seeing without any excuse the evidence of how the virus of white supremacy and racism, anti-Black racism especially, but others as well, has just made overall our environment unsafe. So in that space of all the trauma and drama that brought up, my husband and I got pregnant. I was serving as a chaplain in a hospital, and around the time that it went from everything going right to going wrong, I was serving as a NICU chaplain. God's sense of humor and divine timing, right? So I got to see when babies suffered even before coming out of the womb. Some of the trauma that can cause them to come too early, to be born with issues, to not be able to be taken care of by the mother or the father. Some would have positive stories, somebody seeking out. But anyway, serving as a chaplain allowed me to see kind of um, what is the best worst case scenario. But me doing everything right, super healthy person for a long time, thought I was still healthy, went in for a regular checkup, thinking I was just getting to meet the potential staff and surgeons. As a almost 40 something Black woman, I got pregnant and started developing fibroids, and found out during that checkup that I was walking around with extreme preeclampsia. Didn't know it. I could have stroked or seized at any point. Now, I was serving Monday through Friday for the most part, kind of regular daytime hours, but also alternating overnights with level 1 children's hospitals and serving with death. So on my feet, I wasn't experiencing any of the physical symptoms that I could tell something was wrong, but that happened to be last second appointment, trying to meet and greet with potential doctors and surgeons turned into them calling for transportation, a wheelchair, to take me immediately to emergency labor and delivery, just in case they had to get my daughter out 2.5 months out. Like, so many things. So as I'm there receiving medical treatment and intervention, thankful that I'd taken a shower, gone home, taken a shower from my 24-hour shift, and coming back, the old mamas from the South teach you, make sure everything's clean and matching. You never know. But as I'm going through that and wondering if my daughter is going to be okay, if I'm going to be okay, that I could have died at any moment, had these fibroids on top, eventually able to hold her until 6 weeks premature. It turned out for 4 months, she had not grown at all because the fibroids had taken over. Now, I am from North Carolina and have been living and working in Kentucky, where we're one of the states where trigger laws from the Roe versus Wade and good old McConnell and company. And so I kid you not, after the initial shock of the decision, after the initial sobbing, just living in this, wish it was the Twilight Zone of just watching folks in positions of power that could uphold laws, could present righteous laws, that are instead choosing to continue to oppress, to try to control, to dismiss the people, persons, and children that claim to support, to realize that this was happening in real time, that this was what happened with me. And it turned out, best case scenario, while she was born 3 pounds, a little more than 3 pounds, you would never know she was a preemie. She's developed well and thriving. That was the best case scenario. In so many ways, it could have gone wrong. And we don't want her to be an only child. But after the shock and the tears and the anger, just the level of passivity, I started thinking, what states could we possibly move to where I could feel safe getting pregnant, having maternal health care that cares about me being alive and the child being alive. My home state is also, at the time, was also an almost trigger law state. So I was thinking, well, let me get closer to family if there are any bordering states. Like, I seriously got on Zillow and was looking for houses. Now, never mind, we have to transport our whole lives, have whole jobs, uproot, from any of the spiritual and social support we have. But all of this is just at the potential that I could get pregnant again, that it may not go as well as it did, even in my extreme circumstance, and to have to question whether the doctors would have to break a law to try to keep me alive. Or the child alive, if God forbid it end up being ectopic. So it is very frustrating, one, to see some of my brothers in ministry, leadership, have voices that folks are listening to, that when the decision was made and publicized formally, because we know this was decided weeks ago when they leaked the decision, I guess to see people's reaction, that it troubled me that leading voices, influential folks who could never be pregnant, who could never have a history of fibroids, who could never have to make a decision on whether they would live or the child would live, who have never had to deal with the menstrual cramps and other pains and fears, because even before my fibroids, as a low iron individual, I always, Sakina, had to make sure I was double layered, and was thankful when they had the I call astronaut padding, just to be able to live and to work and to serve and to take care of myself and those around, that they would never ever have to worry about those things, will so easily dismiss and condemn women with broad stroke and pretend that God had something to do with that. That's the biggest thing that we're not talking enough about. Because for those in privilege and power, this option will always be open. The access will always be there. But we support one gender's reproductive rights by allowing insurance to cover pills, little blue varieties. But contraception for women is a problem because it's not about life being well and people being whole and children being safe. It's about controlling, manipulating, and oppressing. Straight no chaser. It's about the concern that America's and the world has become too colorful. It's about losing influence to control the cages that have been created in our systems of life. And I know this may seem dark and general, but it's the reality of all the waves and storm that's created by cutting out the protections of women's health and reproductive rights that were connected to or decided because of the original decision of Roe versus Wade. And I hope, as a good preacher, I hope I didn't go too long, but wanted to share the reality of where I am, where my family is, and this is a right family, mama and a daddy who are together, legally committed, wanting to build a family, and knowing that because of this decision, our current and future children are less safe. My girl child, if this doesn't get fixed, is going to have to grow up without that protection, without that health, without her life being protected in that way. And that's my story. And I hope and pray for the miracle that more folks in position, whether they are male or whether they are male supporting, to hear these conversations, to listen to women's stories, and to share more truthfully about what the need and the problems are. So thank you again for allowing me to share, allow my bonus panelists to be a part of this telling.
Yeah, thank you for talking about the church's role in all of this. I had that same thought today, like we have to talk about this. And so we need to address that. So, Dr. Breaker, you're up next.
Yay, my turn.
Yay.
You know, it's so funny because I want to say that I have a combination of both of your stories. So how befitting that I actually go last because literally, Sakina, yours plus Reverend Monk's, it's literally a combination of both stories. So just background, like 2000, God, how long have I been out of school? Let's see, 2002, yes. 2002, I was in grad school and I went to the University Health Center for my annual exam. Because, we pay for, health care from the university. So I'm going to use the health care at the university. I was blessed enough to have a midwife examine me. And she found cystic ovaries. So that was my first diagnosis of PCOS. For those who don't know what PCOS is, it's polycystic ovarian syndrome. And many of the signs that you may have it includes having cystic ovaries. And when you have cystic ovaries, sometimes you have an irregular cycle. Sometimes you have facial hair. So you might notice if you're watching the video, I do have facial hair. You'll notice balding. I have balding as well. Excess testosterone, which explains the excessive hair. Just a lot of overweight. You have an extra gut, tired, sleep apnea, depression. There are so many signs and symptoms of having PCOS. So at that time, I was only 21. So imagine being diagnosed with PCOS at the age of 21 and all you hear is you won't be able to have children. I tried medicines, even my primary care in DC, my PCP there, she's like, they knew exactly what to look for. They did a really good job, like we tried different medications. Many of the medications that are prescribed, one of them commonly is metformin or glucophage. I can't remember which one is the generic name brand, but it's something that's also prescribed to diabetics because there is an insulin resistance associated with PCOS. Tried that medicine was the devil, sends you to the bathroom every so often. I'm talking about, you think you have bubble guts? I'm sorry if that's too much, but I promise you, try being a school teacher taking metformin. Not a good look. I literally had to stop. Tried to extended release. None of that worked. Anyway, fast forward through all of that. Fast forward through, people cracking jokes about facial hair or women with mustaches, women with beards. Fast forward through all of that because it takes an emotional toll. It does. I would lie. I'd be lying if I said it didn't. Fast forwarding through all of that, 13 years later, boom, congratulations, Ms. Breaker. This was before I was Dr. Breaker. Ha! Congratulations, Ms. Breaker. You're pregnant. Who's pregnant? Not me. I was like, you really shouldn't play like that. Those were my exact words. You shouldn't play. That's not funny. You shouldn't do that. Because I was 35, which is considered in the medical world advanced maternal age. Whatever. So rude. And she was like, no, really. And I was like, no, really. Let's stop playing. Now, my pregnancy was a hard one. My daughter was also born premature. She was born a month early, 4 pounds, 2 ounces. She spent 8 days in the critical care unit. And she was considered, like her records say, malnutrition. And she clearly was. I lost weight during pregnancy. Most people gain weight. I lost 30 pounds. They found me, but I lost them during my pregnancy. They've since found their way back home. But she was malnutrition and nobody knew why. They couldn't figure out why. Well, 3 years later, we know that I had uterine fibroids. Of course, they saw the ovarian cyst, but everybody missed the uterine fibroids. Well, imagine having, gone through that. And I had a very traumatic birthing experience. So I'm one of those people, I don't want to have, well, I can't now, but I didn't want to have any more children. Like at all, because of the traumatic birthing experience. Because of that, Black women's maternal health that people don't take so seriously. I know for a fact that I died on that delivery table. I know that I did. I know that my daughter coded twice. I know that I don't remember a large chunk of giving birth to my child, a cesarean, something that you are supposed to be awake for. I do not remember it. I only remember them hitting the wrong space for the epidural. I remember waiting to hear her cry, and that's it. I remember waking back up and they're like, here's your baby. And I couldn't even hold her. I was so weak. But there's nothing in my medical record that tells me what happened to me. And that goes back to that malpractice piece that you were talking about. So when I say I have a bit of all of these stories, I mean it. So I didn't want to have any more children. And so reproductive rights are very important to me in that sense, that I can do all that I'm supposed to do and things can still happen. And so, but it's my body, I deserve that choice. And so 2019, like I said, 2018, I told my doctor, I was like, listen, I can't do this. Like, this is too much. Like, I'm bleeding ridiculously. And I'm talking, I had on a Super Plus tampon and 2 Super Plus pads. And I was still soiling my clothes at work. I'm a school counselor now. I couldn't be walking the halls, just like you said, like that saying. And I vividly recall sitting down, having a meeting with a student, and I felt it. I was like, oh my God. And I had to wait until everybody left. And I was like, I'm just going to sit here. You guys go ahead. I'm going to sit here and finish up something real quick. And when I got up, I knew there was going to be something there. And sure enough, I soiled my clothes. So I had to hurry up and clean up the spot, with disinfectant and all of that. And on a lunch break, I had to take an early lunch break to go to Walmart to find me some more clothes to wear at work because I lived 40 minutes away. So if I went home, I was staying home. We tried birth control. And I don't even like birth control because of what it does to your body. There are other side effects to birth control, but when birth control is your only option, or I won't say only, but the most acute option, if you will, to deal with heavy bleeding and such, you roll with it because you're trying to find a means to an end. I tried Nexplanon. I had an insert in my arm. I still have like a keloid from it right here from the insert. Didn't help. Nothing helped. And so I said, you know what? just give me a hysterectomy. Just give it to me. And there isn't a day that I don't struggle with the fact that I now physically am no longer able to have children. But I could not have a true quality of life bleeding for 2 weeks straight with 3 days off to start bleeding again for another 2 weeks. That's not life. That's not living a quality life. And when we talk about uterine fibroids, I had my surgery 2019. Like, we went through a year of trying birth control. 2019, finally got a hysterectomy scheduled because we tried everything that we possibly could. Even the pills to keep me from bleeding. They worked for about a week. Pathology report comes back from my hysterectomy. Turns out one of the uterine fibroids, the biggest one, was a rare tumor. It's called an IMT. Oh, I can't think of it. It's a very long name. Something myofibroblastic tumor. Long story short, which it really isn't a long story short, but if there were 1,000 people in a room, no one would have this tumor. One more person walks in and there it is. That's how rare it is. I'm the 5th case in the world, not the United States, in the world. It's that rare. It's rare to the point that Duke, their, what is this called? I can't even think of it right now. Oh gosh, what is it called? The Duke Cancer Center for women. I can't even think of what it's called right now. Anyway, they had a special conference about my case. That's how rare it is. And so when I think about what reproductive rights mean, what if they told, because I know many people's like, oh, they're going to tell you you're too young to have a hysterectomy. Well, it's my body. And I'm telling you, I want a hysterectomy. What if I hadn't been so persistent? What if I hadn't said, I don't care, I'm going to do whatever it is I need to do? That's why reproductive rights are important, because otherwise I would still have this tumor growing in my body. It's a tumor that they don't even know how to treat it. I literally have to go once a year to get a CT scan on my chest, and my abdomen, because it can also grow in your lungs. So it can come back, and while it's not cancerous, they don't know if it'll ever be cancerous because that's how rare it is. So I have to go every year to get a CT scan. I have to go every 6 months to get a gynecological exam. Gynecology, that's what it is. Gynecological cancer. Oncologist. I could not think of that. Oh my gosh. So yeah, I have to go. And so reproductive rights means so many things for me. So when people are so content and happy about Roe v. Wade being overturned, I have to ask like a few questions. Like, one, why is it so important to you what someone else does with their body? That's my first question. My second question is, if you're so very much pro-life, then are you committed to taking care of those lives that people choose not to want to bring into this world? Because people complain about people being on welfare. Well, guess what? That's a part of pro-life. You want these babies here. So this is when now I'm getting a little bit like charged, right? You want these babies here, but you don't want to take care of them in the system. Then why are they here? If you're not going to take care of them and it's not your body, why do you care? And to go under the whole guise of it's not God's will, but God also gave us free will. Who are you to take it away? If I chose to have an abortion, God ain't gonna ask you about me on Judgment Day. He gonna want to know about what you did. And if it's about it being a sin, then tell me the day that you didn't commit one. I struggle and I get so angry with people who really want to make it about religious beliefs. Well, everybody don't believe in what you believe in. And freedom of religion isn't, oh, it's against my religion, so you can't do it. No, it's against your religion, so you can't do it. You don't get to tell me what I get to do because it's against your religion. What if it's not my religion? You don't have a heaven or hell to put anybody in. So it's not your place to worry about what someone else does with their body. And when men talk about, well, you take away a man's choice to have a kid, well, that you're the one who has implanted this child. I can't make myself pregnant. No other woman can make herself pregnant. So if you don't want anybody aborting anything, then maybe you shouldn't release your children into the world. I this is the very first conversation that I've, like I said before, that I've had about this topic. So forgive me if I am like so emotionally charged and so
It's okay
Please don't
because
apologize. Yeah. Please don't apologize.
we need to see this emotional part, because women for so long, especially Black women, we have been taught that if we show our emotions, then something's wrong. Oh, she's angry. You're damn right I'm angry.
Mhm.
yes, I
You
have
just
every
took
right to be
away
angry.
my reproductive rights and my dog. I was thinking today, we all have daughters that we're now worried about. Like I'm up at night worrying, how can I help my daughters through this? What happens if, my daughter ends up raped, God forbid, and she ends
And
up
then
pregnant?
right, and here's the other thing. PCOS is genetic.
It's genetic. I thought about that
It's
too.
genetic.
Right.
And so I have to wonder, I see my baby's faint little cute little mustache on her. Like she has a very faint, she's a hairy child. She got it honest. Her daddy's hairy, her mommy's hairy. She's just a little hairball.
Mm-hmm.
But, I just I hate this world for her. And I had gotten so content with and so at peace with not having a child that I was mad at her for a very long time. I was mad with God for a very long time. I was like, oh, you talked about God having a sense of humor. Oh, you got a real
Right.
big sense of humor, buddy.
Right.
Like, is this what we're going to do? Because I didn't want somebody that I'm responsible for to have to grow up in this world.
Right.
I hate this world for her. It is just awful.
Right.
But she's such a ray of sunshine. So as much as he has a great sense of humor, I know for a fact that she is God sent.
Mm-hmm.
There are no doubts about it. Her name means message from God, and that is truly what she is.
Mm-hmm.
Without a doubt. Like, I'm like, oh girl, that's God talking, right? Because she's 6. But she is
She's 6, but she's 10, right?
Yes, like she is so wise beyond the years that she's been on this earth. She's so wise. It's like only God could send somebody, like that into this world. So it just bothers me so that people don't understand what Roe v. Wade being overturned really means.
Right.
And those who put it on this religious pedestal of, well, it shouldn't have been anyway, or the women who are also gung-ho about it, who would rather, cut off their nose to spite their faces. Like, I just don't understand. You are taking away your own choice. You believe in somebody telling you what to do with your own body? Like
Mhm.
you have the same thing that you're talking about. God gave you this free will to decide, and you and only you will have to answer for what you've done.
Right.
I can only answer for me. I can't answer for Sakina. I can't answer for Reverend Monk. I can't do that. That's
Right.
whatever you did is on you. Whatever I did is on me, and I will answer to him for that.
Right.
But how do we justify, or how do so many um religious, because I know it's not everyone, but I just don't understand the guise of putting it under religion.
For me, it's almost like the cops where they say, "Oh, there are good cops." Well, where are they? Because all the bad ones are killing people like ad hoc, you know. Um, but yeah, that is another discussion that I do want to have, and I also want to have another discussion, a separate discussion about the maternity mortality rate among Black women. And I was trying to decide which one should I have next. And my initial thought was the maternal mortality rate, but I think that the issue with churches just kind of sitting silent while the world burns
That
is a
part.
conversation that we desperately need to have. One thing that didn't come up in any of our conversations was endometriosis, and how they still don't know how, like, they still don't know where, like, why is it here? And you can't be diagnosed with endometriosis until you have a hysterectomy. And so we have this other health issue that is, running amok in women's bodies, um, uncontrolled. And now we have outside forces saying, yep, we're not going to control it either way. And so I'll give us another 5 more minutes. If you have anything that you want to say, we have an election coming up this year in November. I don't know, y'all. Like, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. But for me, if I can say anything, um, I'm looking to my brothers. Please help us. Please understand. And I know that we're angry, and we should be, and we're really fussy and arguey, and we should be. And sometimes we take that frustration out on you all. Sometimes you deserve it, sometimes you don't. But this conversation was to help you understand what we're going through. And I'm hoping, and my prayer, like preparing for this, was, God, please help them have compassion and get up in November and go and vote. Help them have compassion to get up and go to a protest. Help them have compassion. Your sisters, your mother probably dealt with it. You just don't know it. But just because you don't know it doesn't give you a reason to not act. We need your help because, they say, Black women at the polls and Black women change this and Black women do that. Well, they're beginning to break down on that. And so we need to take a stand. We need your help. We need your support. We need your compassion, because it just got real. So, Robin, any last
Uh,
words?
yes. My hope and challenge is for especially those who are called to give good news, who are believers in Jesus the Christ, to have courage, not just of conviction that can be held silently, but of action that is life affirming for all God's children. So please speak up as Jesus would and did.
And died for it.
Life.
Mhm.
Speak up, not just behind the curtain and in your vote, but speak up because you have influence And if the roles were reversed, how easily would you lay down and allow for everyone else to decide for you what happens to your body, to your life? So have courage and speak up. Thank you.
Dr. Breaker?
I guess I just really just implore men and even women, because there are some women who are on the side of yay, Roe v. Wade being overturned. I just implore you to think critically and don't just follow the masses. Like, be an independent thinker and know why you're choosing to support something. And understand what that support looks like on the other end. Because on the front end, it sounds all great. Oh, yes, it should be overturned anyway. You know, but again, that goes back to, if you are truly pro-life, remember that life goes beyond the birth. So once they are birthed, what's next? Are you actually willing to adopt a child? Do you know how much adoption costs? Have you ever experienced having to give a child up for adoption? Because it's not as simple as just handing over your baby. And study the word for yourself. Like, and don't try to twist and turn God's word. Please don't. Because that's something you'll have to answer for too. You know, when you lead people astray. I just want people to be very mindful of the things that they say and that they do and what they truly support, and then put action to your actual support beyond what the masses are doing at the present time. That's it, because I can go on and on, so I'll stop there.
Well, thank y'all for your time. I really appreciate, just taking your time out of the day. This was a very hard discussion to decide to have. But you guys, we all stepped up in representation of our sisters. It doesn't matter what color you are, where you are in this country, we are all affected by this. And so I'm really grateful. Thank you, Reverend Monk Self, and thank you, Dr. Breaker, for your time.